Hello, everyone. We will now begin a session on development approach to the large-scale renovations using feature toggle. And let me introduce myself. My name is Kenjiro Isomura, and I joined the LINE Growth Technology in 2019, and I am currently a front-end developer at the LINE Sukimani. I usually develop using the React and the TypeScript, and I prefer Next, and I use it for that development. And before I begin my presentation, I would like to introduce a little about the LINE Sukimani, which I am currently involved in the development of. LINE Sukimani released in March 2021, and that is gig work areas, and just a few hours working, or right away tomorrow. And for those people, and you will be able to find the jobs. And we provide web applications for job seekers and the management screens for companies posting jobs. We also have an official LINE account, so if you have some time in that case, and I would like you to add it to the friend. Now my presentation. And suddenly, you all know about the feature toggle. In fact, if you don't know, that's okay. 6 months ago, I did not know about this feature toggle at all. And feature toggle, what is this? Feature toggle is development technique that enables disables a feature based on the state called a flag, which can be turned on and off depending on the certain conditions. By incorporating this feature toggle technique into your implementation, you can disable the feature under the development for the users by setting the flag to false, as it is shown in here. Now, when you turn off the flag true, in the case, this will enable the feature for the users. By disabling the feature under the development for the user with the toggle, and we developers can hide the feature from the users and continue to use that feature in the production environment, while still allowing the user to use the feature under the development. And I'll be talking about this feature toggle. In this session, we'll discuss about this, and why we have implemented this, and the background, and then also a concrete approach to the feature toggle implementation using the React customer hook, and using a feature toggle, and how to what is going to be the structure to make it a safe development, and then how we have operated, and also what was the result of the feature toggle. And I hope that this session will help you to those who are considering about implementing a feature toggles in your project, and if are interested in learning how to implement this at the front end. And hopefully we can give you this information. And why we needed a feature toggle in order for you to understand the background information. And first I should talk about the LINE Sukimani team's development structure. And this is our team, and we have the squad, the system. And this is the team structure. And what is a squad is? An autonomous and empowered team consists of small numbers of the cross-functional members. At the LINE Sukimani, as shown in here, and there are the 3 squads, each considering 2 or 3 members in each roles of the planning in the server side and the front end and QA. And the team is developing the product. A key feature of this squad structure is that each role has a lead who makes the decisions, and the squad is responsible for the entire process from the strategy formulation to the planning, development, and release. And I am doing that front-end lead in one of the squad team. And in general, Git deploy development is done from the develop branch to the release and the feature branches. But in the squad system, development is done from the developer branch to each squad's developer branch, as shown in here, and each squad develops in parallel. And each squad releases a new release about the once every week or 2, and the team as a whole releases an average of 6 times a month, and which allows for aggressive development. And this is how it works. And now, let me talk about the background. And it's in May, and our squad in LINE Sukimani, and a project we had a project to do a large-scale innovation of LINE Sukimani, and which we never had before. The project involved the modification of the more than 30 existing functions, and then also the new pages, and including the QA. It was like a 6 months or so. In addition to that, and there was a release timing, and as a business, and therefore we had to make a plan to do it. The first things we thought for large-scale development was to complete all feature development and the QA on the feature branch, and then merge it into the main branch for a big bang release. However, it didn't work. Given our development structure, we thought that there is going to be some challenges. And because assuming that there's a multiple squad and we work in a parallel, and therefore, if we do that big bang release, and the other squad will be developing and some other the new measures in parallel, and it's going to be released at the same time. Since each squad average is about 2 releases per month, and therefore, if we calculate it, and 6 months later, we will have 1 release, and then in other squads, 2 squads, and we'll have a total 24 releases. And this is different in the span of the release between the different squads. Result, the linkage between the squads may have some issues like this. And first, we think about the linkage from the other squad to our squad. And since the other squad regularly reflect the code on the main branches, code changes made by the other squad can be reflected into a branch by back margin. And it seems to be this is okay. But on the other hand, the source code developed by our squad is. And then those changes. And after the QA and development is done, and 6 months later, and therefore that is not going to be reflected. And therefore, you may not be able to integrate it among the squad, and there is going to be some issues. And first of all, that at the release timing, there is going to be lots of the conflicts. And the source code, and which we have worked on the 6 months, it's not going to be the much, and therefore the difference is going to be very big. And occurrence of the conflict due to these differences was inevitable. And also, there's lots of the code-based the improvement because of that conflict, and then also cannot improve. Reflect that to the other squad. It's going to be pretty difficult. And such as like a water flow, such as like a big bang, and in the case the functionality has to be implemented, everything. And the issue or the functional the issues, the test. There is going to be some things that we have to deal with. And because of those challenges, I decided that we need a system that we allow for continuous development for ensuring that the user would not be able to see that. And this is the Slack channel combination, and this, maybe it's like a feature toggle issues. And it was totally a feature toggle or the story. And you may wonder, and what is this? And at the time, and I did not know the feature toggle or development. And for the new project, and I wanted to hide the functionality for the users, and I was wondering what would be the best way. And my colleague talked about the feature toggle, and I learned about it, and therefore I have searched about the feature toggle, and then as it is, and for the large scale, and continuous development is needed. In the case, the feature toggle has an advantage. On the other hand, it also has the demerit for the feature toggles.
The feature toggle increases the complexity of the code because the flags generate the codes that are not provided to the users. So as the development goes, then because of the feature toggle, that the codes became bigger and then became more complex, and also that there's a risk of exposing the features to the users under the development. So you can hide it, but the source code itself is deployed in the production environment. So if you cannot check it correctly, then you may expose a functionality to the users. So in order to avoid that, you may have to increase the QA cost. However, I felt that the benefits of this disadvantage were greater than the disadvantages. such as reduced conflicts, improved code base, and plan development by merging and collaborating with other squads in a bidirectional manner. So therefore, I suggested to use the feature toggles to the teams. The response from the members was so positive. So that's why we deploy the feature toggle in our squad. So from here, I'd like to discuss an approach to implementing feature toggles using the React custom hook. Before we get into the implementation, let me explain the requirements for a feature toggle on the front end. The first requirement is to avoid exposing the functionality under development. In an environment where toggle is turned off, the user should not be exposed to the functionality being implemented or being developed. The second requirement is to be able to switch toggles for each environment. In addition to the production environment, we have the different test environment for each squad. In our squad's test environment, we'd like to enable new features by turning toggle on, but in other squads, we need to turn toggle off to test and develop without exposing new features. Therefore, we needed to be able to toggle between the local development environment, the test environment, and the production environment. To meet these requirements, I implemented a React custom hook called Use Feature Toggle. This hook takes an option to set the feature toggle as an argument and returns a boolean is enabled that holds the state of the toggle and 3 render functions that switches the display of the component depending on the state of the toggle. To illustrate each interface, I have implemented a sample application using Next.js and Tailwind CSS. The screen on the left is the one with the toggle turn on, and then the screen on the right is on the one with the toggle turn off. While looking at this implementation, I'd like to explain how feature toggle is implemented. Let's discuss the is enable, which holds the state of the toggle. And you have to change the toggle depending on the environment. So in order to satisfy this requirement, the toggle state is determined based on the value of an environment variable called features, which can be set in the environment file. And the target feature option in this example, the function sample is set as the target of toggle, and sample is specified in the target feature option and the feature environment variable in the configuration file in the local environment. To turn off the toggle, comment out the features environment variable. So what is internal implementation? It's very simple. The is enable logic itself is very simple. In hooks, the target feature option passed as an argument is compared with the environment variable set in the features, and if they match, is enable is set to true and the toggle is turned off. If the features environment variable is commented out and not set, toggle is turned off. This allows the toggle to be toggled by is enable. As shown in the sample, side on the left, toggle is on when the features environment variable is set, and then toggle is off when the environment variable is commented out. And toggle is turned off in a commented out development environment. It seems that if is enable is all you need to satisfy, but then why do we need the render function to be returned? Let me explain each render function. First, I explained the render feature toggle function. This function takes an object with an on and off property as arguments. For the on property, pass the element you wish to display when the toggle is on, and for the off property, pass the element you wish to display when the toggle is off. So this function is used when you want to replace the existing element when the toggle is turned on. That is when you want to replace the existing element at the time in release. So the internal implementation is very simple. So is enable, when is enable is true, that the on element is displayed, and when it's off false, then it's the element should be the off element. So next, the render feature on and the render feature off functions. First, the one in the top render feature of function is used when there is an element to be displayed when toggle is turned on. In the example, by passing the sample page of the originally displayed H1 element as an argument, this element can be unused when toggle on. In other hand, the render feature on function is used when there is an element you want to display at the time of toggle on. In the example, we will newly display the text. This text only shows when toggle on. In the example, we pass a span element that displays the text. This text only shows when toggle on. So this implementation is also quite simple with the render feature on function above displaying the element passed as an argument when its enable is false, and the render feature on function displaying the element passed as an argument when its enable is true. Using these three simple render functions of front-end proceeded with the implementation of a feature toggle. But why did we use a render function for switching elements instead of its enable? Because it is easier to clean up the code, source code. If you take a look at the left-hand side, if you use a feature toggle for development, the conditions will be increased, so the source code will become bigger. So if you use a feature toggle for the continuous development, after release, you have to clean up the source code sometimes. So the render functions will be used for different purposes. So therefore, it is easier to clean up. So the render feature. So let me talk about the cleanup of the render feature toggle function. So this function, the purpose of this function is to display, to switch the display when it is released. So then, the element which was passed at the time of on property will be remained, and you can delete the other source codes. So next, render feature on function. So the purpose is to add the new element when it is released. So when you want to clean up, then you remain the elements that was passed, and then other source codes could be deleted. Finally, the render feature of function is intended to delete elements when the toggle is turned on and released. So it is possible to clean up by deleting the entire element that is passed as an argument to this function. Thus, we thought it would be useful to switch the toggle by using the render function to clean up the feature toggle code at some point. So this concludes the Fuchs explanation. If you are using the React, if you want to implement a feature toggle, so please check the custom hook of the feature toggle. So next section.
続いて
And then I will talk about the development strategy in the feature toggle. In this session, I would like to discuss the concept of the release called virtual release for the safe release, and which was developed during our development and with the feature toggle, and the QA phase for the aggressive and the planned development. And let me discuss about the virtual release first. And before I explain about it, and for the comparisons, and without the feature toggle, and what is going to be the normal operation in the flow, which I would like to discuss first. And then one sprint can be divided into 4 phases in the development, and from left to right, development phase to the implement functionality, and to make sure that functionality is implemented, and the functional QA phase and regression QA phase, and for the final confirmation, and before the production and release phase. And now, with the feature branch, and we are going to start the development, and after it's done, and the squad development branch is going to be merged and then deployed in the branch, and then deployed the squad test environment, and the functional QA test is then performed. And after that, a squad develop branch is merged into the main developed branch and developed to the data environment, and regression test is then conducted, and check the final ones reflecting before it goes to the production environment. And with this regression test, and there's no issue in the case, and it's going to be put it into the production environment. And if there's no issues in that case, this sprint is going to be completed. And then the release is once, and then with the back merge, and then the other the squad development branch, and then the conflict are corrected at the time. And this was the development flow in case of the normal one. And then in case of the virtual release, what is the difference? At the local environment, and we do that the future branch for the virtual release, and the toggle is on in a local environment. And the next, when development is done, and then as merged to the squad development branch, and this is going to be the differences from the normal block. And then after this, and the two, we are going to deploy the source code to the two test environment, and one environment toggle on, and the functional test, and then we'll make sure that it is implemented. And in the other environment, the toggle off. And we deploy and then verify that the feature under the deployment has not been exposed or degraded. By testing in this environment with the toggle off, we will be able to work on development with confidence. Once test is completed in each environment and deployed to the better environment with a squad the development branch merged into the deployment branch, and toggle turn up. And then we do the regression test to make a final check. And then regression QAPs and then also functionally QAPs, and we will check. And then we will be able to make sure that those two are safe. And then in the regression test is completed, usually there is a merge to the branch. To the master branch, and at the virtual case, and we don't do this at this timing, and because that our functionality is not going to be delivered to the users, and therefore, and there's no value to the users, even though if we do this, and therefore at the better environment, regression test is completed, and then in this sprint, it is considered to be completed, and then we call this the virtual release, as we consider the release to be completed. And then, when the virtual release is completed, and then the source code will be developed, and it will be back-merged into the other squad, and make sure that there's no conflict, and if there is, and we fix it. And with the virtual release flow and the big bang release issues, and that we are not be able to give to each other both directions, and those issues is gone. And when our source code is going to be deployed in the production environment, the answer to this question, the code we developed is ultimately reflected in the production environment through the release of the flow of the other squad development. And there's one benefit, and there is the regression test and also the functional QA test, and that's done. And therefore, bug is exposed, and therefore the future code can be implemented for the productions without any fears. So this was the virtual release flow explanation. And next, in order to, we would like to discuss about two QAPs. And before I explain the QAPs, there will be some three different issues that I would like to discuss about it. And then exposure of that functionality, and the development and degrade of the existing functionality, and the issue of the functionality, the newly developed functionality, those three.
So we have classified these issues into two large groups. So exposure of functionality and the development and the degradation of existing functionality, and functional issues for new functionality. And so the new functionality issues only occur in environment where the toggle is turned on. Therefore, we applied a different QA completion criteria for each issue. So the criteria to complete the QA for toggle QA on the left are not exposing new functionalities under development, no degradation with other existing functionalities. So the issues that impacts the production environment have to be issued. For the function QA, we applied a function QA criteria. So the test case for the functionalities has to be all completed, and then all the issues affects the test have to be fixed. And so for the future toggle of the development, I'd like to tell you how we plan for these two criteria. So first, we decided in the development planning stage to develop in 2-week sprint using the feature toggle. The first half of the development period was mainly for developing features, and the second half was for addressing the QA issues. So we planned the toggle QA would be performed in all sprints because it affects production environment. And this is the important points that we decided to perform function QA, which checks the implementation of the new functionality, will be performed in the latter half of the development to the release. So what is the benefits of using a 2 different periods? So first, the first half of the development can be focused on developing new features. This is because during this period, toggle QA ensures that existing functions are not exposed or degraded. This allows us to focus on the development of new features during the first half, and since toggle QA ensures that existing features are not exposed. So this means that the feature QA does not take up any of your time. Why this is strategy? The reason why we are able to adopt this strategy is because we use a feature toggle, and this strategy allows us to make the decision to prioritize the implementation of feature over fixing a feature that is not exposed on the users. And then in the second half of the development period, you can focus on the issue of the future. This is because at this point, most of the features development has already been completed. This is why we divided QA into 2 phases. So finally, what happened after we implemented and operated the feature toggle? So first, I'd like to talk about a conflict. As a result, by using a feature toggle, we were able to implement the codes with other squads. So since it was a large project, we had some conflict, but we had interactively merged the source code. So therefore, conflict didn't take so much time to fix. And then, so regarding the safety development, the exposure of the source code in the production environment didn't happen even at once because we conducted the toggle QA in every sprint. But the one time that we were really scared because in a virtual environment, some functionality was exposed, but there was a buffer period until the functionality is implemented in a production environment. So we were able to fix it. So then whether or not we were able to do the planned development. So let's take a look at this chart. So this is the graph that whether we were able to consume the efforts according to this graph. So if we do, then it means that we were able to developed according to the plan. So as a result, well, look at the result. We don't have so much gap between the actual and the plan. And then towards the end of the development period, our speed went faster because the number of the issues happened was lower than we expected. So in response, our team made the following assumptions. The first half of the development process, the toggle QA period, which is the time when we not only expose features, but also check that existing features have not been degraded. So this means that we were able to eliminate the degradations that should have occurred at this point in the development process. This was not anticipated in the initial planning and was an unexpected benefit of splitting the QA phase into 2. So conclusion. So I talked about our strategy and what happened in a team. So we prevented the issues and in a big bang release, and we were able to develop according to the plan. So if you have multiple teams and if you have the large scale fix on the division, you can use the feature toggle. So finally, I have the nice saying from the LINE Sukimani product team's lead, so that the challenges we encounter are not the first challenges we have encountered in humanity. Yes, we referred to the different use cases and the similar issues which somebody was already faced. So I hope that our experience would benefit you as well. It concludes my presentation. Thank you.
ここからはプラス
Isamura-san, thank you very much. Now, plus talk. And in terms of the session, we would like to deep dive and there's any questions. And then also, we would like to get the questions from the audience as much as possible. If you have questions in that case, please go to the question mark buttons at the bottom of the screen and post the questions. And from Yahoo Japan, Naoya Ishii-san, and who is the interviewer? And can you do that self-introduction? And I am from the Yahoo Japan, and I am doing the service front-end developer. And my name is Ishii. Nice to meet you all. And now you have discussed about the feature toggle and the specific the feature toggle functionality that you probably presented. And in addition to that, in operations, and then also with the collaboration with the other teams. And you discussed about the advantage of the feature toggles, and I learned a lot. Thank you very much for your presentation. And then my questions would be, and the first one, and first what I thought was the feature toggle, and probably the other people who probably face the same kind of challenges. And maybe the third-party library, did you use the third-party library? And in terms of the third-party application, we do not use it. That is a conclusion. Because the third-party, and there was a lot of them, and we kind of have reviewed the third-party ones. However, for this development project, that was the deadlines and the implementation cost for the third party. When we thought about it, and it doesn't really work. And when we release, and the function is going to be a cap. And therefore, we have used this kind of feature toggle for the environment, the variables, for this case.
So because of this large scale revision modification, you added a feature toggle. So you focus on solving that issue. So therefore, you want to keep it compact, right? Yes, because eventually, if we are going to use a feature toggle again, so we wanted to implement something to use a toggle. However, for this time, we just wanted to focus on this development, so that was why. So regarding the implementation, there was some way to implement. So the custom hook was used, right? So by doing but why did you decide on the custom hook, and what was the benefit of that? So React, the reason why we used the React custom hook was that so there is a permission toggle, so that you can switch on and off the toggle depending on the user. So if you want to implement it, then we are using a Redux for the data management, and it has a good chemistry with the hooks. That's why we are using it.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned about the permission toggle and the toggle management. How did you do that? You mean the permission toggle? No, or permission toggle included, and as well as a release toggle. I think that for the other toggles. And as of now, at the front side, and by the environment, the variable we manage, and at the time of the deployment, and we decide that a value, other variables. So locally we do that management of the, and we conduct the A/B test. But that is going to be the third-party ones we use and implement the toggles. That's what we do.
Thank you. So other than that, because of the React development, as a React component that you are using the feature toggle, but what was the things that you paid attention and you did something special? For this time, so there were many revision to the modification to the existing functionality. So we wanted to minimize the impact, and so that's why we try to use the common components. And so using the props, depending on the data to be received, we change the functionality. We made a difference. And so we made it more abstract and
Thank you very much. And other than that, probably there's some questions from the audience. So I'd like to take a look at that. And at the back end and the future flag, and how did it work? Can you answer to that? And with the feature toggle, in order to develop and alignment with the backend, and this is very important, integration with the backend, and it was important. And the backend side, using the Spring, and at the Spring, and we developed, and at the backend side, we did the same thing. And at the backend side, and how they actually implement and do the toggle on and off, I don't know. However, with the same environment, toggle on and toggle off, and we deploy. So with the same the status of the toggle, and that's what we have used in the operation. And at the backend, with the different implementation with the same environment as we have seen in the drawings or the figures. So on and off, there's on and off, and separately at the back end, and they have the separate ones, and how it been deployed. Thank you very much.
So this modification, after this modification is over, the feature toggle created was cleaned, right? Feature toggles were cleaned up, right? But are you going to reuse those feature toggles for other developments? Well, so this case that we use the feature toggle was the development for or modification that lasted 6 months, so large scale. So then, but if you are working in a shorter sprint, then that maybe feature, you may have to look into whether you are using a feature toggle. Well, then in that case, that you may use the third-party ones, or you may revise the existing feature toggles. Right. If you have the more short-term development, maybe you can use the third party, or you can implement the UI to switch on and off the toggle, or you set up the SATA. That might be a better way.
Thank you very much. And anything else? The last question. And using the feature toggle, about using the feature toggle, and it's something that you have to give up. Is there any such things, or something that you will not be able to implement it because you have used the feature toggles, or something that you gave up? And because of the nature of the feature toggle, and especially at the front end, a JavaScript bundle, and the new functionality have to be included, and that is inevitable. And at the server side, and they use the feature toggle, and therefore the data it should not go to, and the server side it have to block. And that's how we have done, and that is going to be the trade-off to implement this feature toggle. Thank you very much.